Hey, Rachel.
Hello, Louise.
Thank you so much for agreeing to take part in one of my real life conversations. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to
No, thank
join
you for
us.
inviting me.
It's my pleasure. So, rather than me try and introduce you to everybody else, can you tell us a little bit about your company and what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm a life story writer, and it started off just doing kind of family history, really, doing one-to-one projects. But as time went by, I kind of realised that group projects were actually a really worthwhile kind of angle to that too. In fact, working as groups of about 4 people, it kind of went beyond that whole family history, social history thing, but also looked at kind of building connections with people, and it's kind of blossomed from there. So it very much started off, like I say, as a kind of a one-to-one service, but now quite a lot of my work is in community settings and support groups for people, because it's really beneficial for such a wide range of people. So obviously older people, but I also work with carer groups, dementia groups, and we've also just recently collaborated with a nutrition company called Munch, and so we're doing kind of life story work, looking at people's food stories, food memories, food heritage, and linking that up with kind of getting more healthy outcomes, cost efficient cooking, kind of healthy hacks in the kitchen, and creating a community cookbook full of stories, which is a really kind of lovely offshoot of the strict life story work that I tend to do.
I love that. I really love that. The kind of power of food stories is huge. Certainly in my family, that's a very, very emotive topic, is recipes from the past that we've all cooked all the way through, that my mum taught us. And, if someone dares to put a red pepper in our sausage and bean casserole instead of a green pepper, there is hell to pay. It is not what it is.
Well,
And
that's what we're kind of building on with the project, is kind of looking at old favourites and then how you can update them. So
no, it's not to be updated.
I think everyone has kind of those favourite recipes or the comfort recipes that they go back to, that maybe, and it tends to be, mum or gran who taught you how to do them. And so the whole kind of the whole feel of the workshops is very much collaboration of people. So like we look at shepherd's pie, for instance, and look at how you can kind of make that cheaper, easier to prepare, healthier. So and then, because everybody says, as your family does, you can't possibly do that, we suggest switching out some of the mince, lamb mince, for red lentils. And particularly as we've worked with housing associations or with kind of community groups who are a bit older, they're kind of lentils, what you not really know. But we do a meal after we've shared the stories and we've collected the recipes, and we have a kind of a communal meal. And my colleague Mary cooks these dishes and shows how to, she does an apple pie where she switches out the sugar for honey, and just little things. So obviously with the lamb, it's quite good for cost saving as well. So she does all that, and then we all sit down together and enjoy the meal and talk whether it worked for them, but also asking things like, so mashed potato, do you have to use butter and cheese, or could you use horseradish, for example, as a kind of a creamy, particularly if people are losing their taste buds a bit as they're getting older, to have something with a bit of a punch to it, or olive oil. So it's really kind of a talking shop as well, getting people to kind of think about new ways of doing the old classics without you losing that kind of, their kind of pride and heritage about a recipe they may have had for years.
Oh my gosh, you're literally mixing two of the most important things for me together: food and family and reminiscence. It's amazing work.
Yeah.
I do want to just take us back to your starting point around your life story work, and where, as you said, these other things have kind of been offshoots from that, but that was your core. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about this shared passion of ours from your perspective of reminiscence with photographs and bringing back memories.
Yeah, It started, I suppose, when my gran was diagnosed with dementia, and she wanted me to write her life story. But unfortunately, she was up in Lancashire and I was down south, and it never happened. And it was always a huge source of regret that we hadn't got that. Because, I mean, the reason I couldn't get up there very often was I just had my daughter. So I was kind of knee deep in nappies. And I was quite sad for her as well that she hadn't got the the family history, the family stories that my gran clearly wants to pass down. But my mum had the opportunity to do some life story work with my granddad, who at the time he was after my gran died, he was in his 90s and he was quite lonely and didn't want to go to kind of community centre groups or get involved with it. So he was definitely feeling kind of a sense of isolation. But Mum said when she went over to do the stories with him, he'd really light up, and it was getting the photo albums out. They'd saved all Gran's diaries and the letters, but there was just boxes and boxes of stuff. So it was quite difficult to kind of wade through it all or know where to begin. So when I did have a bit more time on my hands, I just thought it would be a really nice thing to do for other people, to capture that family history, but also as a wellbeing activity for older people, because the research shows that it's such a therapeutic activity. I think one American psychologist called it chocolate for the brain. That you're kind of seeing these familiar places and people, and it's very comforting. It's a great and I think particularly with dementia, it's been shown that it can kind of de-escalate situations and help people really just kind of, even if they can't name who was in that photo or what they were doing, it's just that sense of seeing something familiar. It's got a huge kind of well-being benefit. So I think that's probably also what led to the development of the business, strictly from the family history side of things to looking at more for the therapeutic benefits of life story work.
Amazing. And without question, and of course, I 100% agree with you around that therapeutic side. You mentioned that, that familiarity and that kind of sense of warmth from seeing things that you recognize, and that the reduction of anxiety is well proven. So I totally agree with you. It's such a powerful tool. The fact that you've done and you do what you do is beautiful. It's an amazing legacy to be able to pass down through the generations. I think it's incredibly special. One of the things that I've noticed on researching you and your work, because obviously, sorry, I have done that.
You've been stalking me.
a little bit, but it's only through out of genuine respect for what you do. I noticed your company values on your website. They all resonate with me, of course, because the kind of values that you have are incredibly important to me as well. I'd love to just chat about boosting self-esteem and self-identity. And that's, I think, under the banner of like recognition on your values. And these things are key and critical to me and real life conversations, and obviously you as well, otherwise they wouldn't be your company values. I'd just love to know how you came up with them. What was that process? Why did you land there?
I think basically I started with Presenting Your Past, which was the family history side of things, and then moved on to the life story team, which was where you've probably seen those core values. And it was really just looking at how that work had developed, and people saying, well, why do you do what you do? And I suppose it's like, well, everybody's got a story of value, and they should be given the opportunity to share that. You don't have to have saved people from a burning house or kind of done something. Everybody's got something of value to their story that they should be recognized and respected for it. And I think if you can also understand where that person's come from, particularly with dementia, it makes caring for them so much more rewarding as well, because you can kind of tap into their reality and to tap into their what was important to them. So it's all part of the whole person-centered care process that really kind of drives those values.
I love it. I really do. And this is what I'm going to say next is, I guess, less about my business, but much more about my own personal experience of watching my mum get a real sense of pride. And even though she can't articulate things the way she used to, or communicate the way that she used to, watching my mum tell someone something that they might not know from her past, that sense of belonging and purpose and value, as you said, you see it shine through.
Yeah.
And the idea that someone with dementia doesn't have something to give anymore, I think, is one of the biggest misnomers that there are. That person is absolutely still there, and they can teach, they can share, and there is so much to that person beyond their dementia. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I love about the work that I'm doing. The work that you do is being able to bring those things to life and actually celebrate the life of the person, because there is so much that they have and can give.
Absolutely.
And everything that I think you and I both do and we share is trying to unlock that.
Yeah, and I think going back to the food project that I've been working on, we kind of went into it, and some of the funding that we got was to kind of look at improving nutrition and things around there. But actually, going back to those recipes and going back to how people cooked, and that not you kind of, there's this assumption maybe that we can do things better now, or we can say this is a good idea, but actually, there were recipes where they would be using the whole of the animal, there'd be no waste, and it was using leftovers from Sunday lunch for bubble and squeak on Monday, and it was a lovely opportunity to collaborate with people and hear their kind of wisdom that I think sometimes we do kind of brush over, but people were still able to kind of really bring a lot of value. And I think it's the same with the life story books as well, as you say, just to be able to kind of show the world you on your best day. When quite often you can't articulate that. But if you've got a book and you've got the pictures, you don't have to remember all the details to do that. But and I think it's really important as well for carers who, they've got something to really engage and, walk in the shoes of that person.
So important. I really mean it. I the first time I spoke to you and heard about your work, it really made me sit back and think, and it made me think what I would like to leave for my children.
Yeah, well, I've done my life story book.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, I hope I've still got some chapters to add in there at some point.
I think that's the thing, and I one of the big points for me about life story work is it's not all about looking back, and it's not about a record, it's about moving forward as well. So I think it's a really useful way of taking a pause, taking a beat, and thinking, okay, well, what was me on my best day, and what makes me happy, and how can I move that forward? Okay, so I might not be able to have a game of football anymore because of mobility issues or what have you, but how can I channel that love for football that I once had? I don't know why I'm quoting football, I don't like football, but you know what I mean. Everybody's got something that gave them joy, that made them happy, that lit them up. And sometimes with the kind of the trials and tribulations of life, you forget those things, or they go out the window, and it's a kind of a really useful way, I think, particularly with people going into care settings where they're going to have to change life, and there are going to be kind of compromises perhaps on what they would do at home, looking, well, what do I not want to compromise on, because what's really important to me, and it's often things that you take for granted, like walking the dog. I hope he's not being too noisy. Is he?
Oh, I can't hear him.
Oh, he's yapping away. But just things like that. So in my life story book, my front cover was me with the dog, and it just made me think, if I couldn't go out, just to get a breath of fresh air every morning, that would really impact my mental well-being. And so it's kind of, yeah, I'm a really big advocate for life story books being about looking forwards as well as backwards.
Wow. I am so glad that we were connected by a mutual friend. And I have really enjoyed listening to listening to you today, but obviously our previous connections as well. I wanted to say thank you very much for your support in real life conversations and being somebody that I could talk to and learn from. The work that you do, as I've said multiple times now, I think is fascinating and incredibly important. So thank you very much for taking the time today to chat to me and sharing some of your insights and thoughts on the importance of life story work.